Hi, I've just completed a repair on this customer's NuTone model 2541 AM/FM Master Station. And when I say I just finished it, I mean like 10 minutes ago. Rebuilt the board, cleaned all the controls, spruced up the faceplate, make it a little more presentable, and it plays and works really well. But it still has one annoying problem, which is a fairly common problem that happens on most NuTone intercom equipment that was manufactured from roughly 1967 through about 1973 or so. What is that problem? That problem is it's got broken knobs, and they're not broken on the outside. The outside's actually cleaned up pretty well. They're chrome plated plastic. They were kind of grungy and I cleaned them up and got all the grunge off of them, so now they're kind of shiny again. And the outsides look pretty good. The problem is with the insides. It's the part in the center right here that fits over the shafts on the set. Most of the time on this model in particular, the knob that fits on the master speaker volume, the one with the little indicator right here, or the little indexing slot, see, this one is a volume control and this one is a volume control, so it has these little tags that stick up so you kind of know where they're set. The other two are for the AM/FM tuning dials, and there's no tabs on them because you just turn them and turn them and turn them. This is the one that's typically broken on this particular model, except this set has 3 of them that are broken. So why do they break? Well, a couple of things. One, they break because they're old. This set was made in 1971, so you do the math on how old it is. The other problem that happens on these are the master speaker volume control, this one here, the volume control pot, which this shaft is connected to, it's on the back side of the set, it becomes increasingly hard to rotate as the set gets older and older and older, which makes the user twist the knob harder and harder and harder until eventually it breaks the plastic on the inside. For some reason on this set, the knobs for the AM/FM tuning, which are not hard to turn on this set, they turn fine just like you would expect. They're broken also, so I would suspect it's just because it's old plastic and that's what happens. This type of knob with this inner sleeve was common on sets from that time period, and regardless of what model you have, this is something that happens all the time. Of course, when the knobs crack and break on the inside, they don't grip the shafts properly, and when you try to turn it and operate whatever that control is, it doesn't work properly, and the more you force it, the worse it gets, and eventually they just spin on the shafts and you can't change your radio stations or change your volume or anything reasonably well. So what I'm going to show you is an easy way, at least I think it's easy, that you can fix these, and this is something that you can do yourself. Here are the supplies you're going to need to do this. You need your knobs, however many you have that you have to fix. Inside each knob are these little metal sleeves, and they fit into the center, and you'll see how that goes in. These are critical because this is actually what makes it stay on the shaft that it controls, so you have to have those because they tend to, what happens when the knobs crack and you go to pull them off, these little metal keepers tend to stay on the shafts of the control, so you have to take those off because you need those. You're going to need some little, or not little, but little larger than average toothpicks. These I think are not bamboo ones, these are just regular ones, but they're longer than average, which is not the point, but they're bigger, a little bigger around than your average toothpick, which is a bonus, and you'll see why. You're going to need some little strips of cardboard like this. This is not a real thick cardboard, but it's multi-layer, but it's one of those ones where it doesn't compress very much. It's pretty sturdy and thick, and that's what you want. And of course, we want our Loctite or some other brand gel super glue. And I only recommend the gel super glue because it works really well for this. I know everybody's got their idea of what kind of glue they think is best, but trust me, this works really well. So here's a close-up of one of the knobs. This is actually the master speaker volume knob because it has the little tag on it. And if you look really carefully, you can see right here in the center, there's a crack right here and a crack right here, and this little piece, trying to do this so you can see it, this little piece right here is loose. and it's cracked down inside the opening. Altogether, this is every part of probably 5/8 of an inch deep, and it's cracked not all the way down to the bottom because then the piece would fall out, but it's cracked probably halfway down, which is not good. So what we have to do, I'm going to show you, explain what we're going to do first, and then we're going to actually do it. We have to glue this back together, but we have to glue it back together so it will be more or less round again like it was when it was made. To do that, it can be a little tricky. The other thing we have to do is we have to put our little sleeve back in, and we have to orient it the right way so it fits into the molded opening inside the center opening of the knob. And if you look at this carefully, this is sort of a, I don't know, we're going to call it a modified D-shape sleeve because it's round here that fits on the D-shaped part of the control shaft. The flat side of a D-shaped shaft would be this would be going across this way. So you have this little bump out piece right here, and that corresponds with a bump out inside the opening in the knob, and that helps hold it in place so when you turn it, it doesn't break loose from the plastic and it doesn't rotate on its own, and then it's a big mess. So this has to fit in properly also. Now, when you go to glue the broken piece right here, when you glue it and you have to let it dry, when you look at it, it may not appear to be perfectly round, but it doesn't really matter because this is the piece that fits on the control shaft. So as long as this piece is in there correctly, it's oriented to match the shape inside the opening of the knob, it'll fit just fine and it'll turn just like it's supposed to. What we need to do first is we need to glue this. So this is where our cardboard and toothpicks come in. This is what I call make it up as you go work. Every one that you do is going to be somewhat different, and you have to be flexible about how you approach it and exactly how you do each one, because they're not always going to necessarily be the same. For instance, this one is broken, it's cracked at about 1/4 of the circumference of the circle, but if we look at this one, which is either the AM or the FM, not sure, doesn't matter, this one's broken across in the halfway. So this one's going to be a little different to glue together than this one is because it's broken in a different way. So what we're going to do is we need to put the glue, but then we need some way to press or force the plastic piece back against the broken joint so when it dries, it's in the right shape. And that's where our cardboard and our toothpick come in. What we're going to do with these is basically the cardboard and the toothpicks are like shims or wedges to push the plastic around. And on this one, if I put the toothpick in like that, it actually fits pretty well and it closes up the cracks where it's broken and holds it in place. Sometimes, depending on how it's broken, what you have to do is you can put a piece of cardboard and basically you're just using it as an additional shim, and then you put the toothpick in and that shims it and wedges it the rest of the way. In this particular one where it's only broken on the 1/4 of the diameter of the circle, I don't really need the cardboard. I can get by nicely with just the toothpick. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our gel super glue and we're going to put some down inside, and we're going to put some in the cracks, and you want to try to get as much of it glued together as you can. And we're also going to put some between the outer part of the inner circle and the outer part of the larger circle where the toothpick is going to be, because we're going to leave the toothpick in place and we want the glue to help hold it in place. So once we've done that, we're going to put the toothpick back in, and you can also use the toothpick to sort of spread it around if you need to, and then we'll sit it back in. And when you put the toothpick in, you want to put it in a spot that you can see that it closes up the cracks where it's broken. Once you've found that spot, then what you want to do is put a little more super glue, because we need to reinforce this as much as we can. This is why I like the gel super glue, because if you use the liquid runny kind, it's all just going to run down into the bottom of the slot, and that's not going to do you any good. Once you get that much in, you have to put the little metal sleeve in now, because the super glue is going to dry, and when it dries it gets hard and it could be lumpy, and it could prevent the little sleeve from fitting in properly. So if you look down in the opening, you can see the D shape with the bump out part, and this is part, I can't necessarily show you this easily, but if you look into the opening carefully, you'll see the shape, and then you line up the sleeve like that, and then you push it down inside, and it should be flush across here. Once you've done that, you can also put a little bit of super glue in the little notches where the corner of the bump out part is, because that will help hold it all in place. What you don't want to do is you don't want to get super glue, like big globs of it, down inside the sleeve, because that's going to interfere with making it fit onto the shaft where the knob goes. Once you've done that, you can take another toothpick and you can sort of make sure you clean it all up and everything. At this point, what we're going to do is, for right now, this one's done. Because when this dries, drying time is important. Drying time at a minimum is 24 hours. Okay, you have to leave it for at least 24 hours to make sure it's thoroughly dry. If you wait 20 minutes and then you go put it on the set and try to turn it, all you're going to do is break everything you just did, and then you're going to have to clean it up and do it again. You know, you probably have been living with a broken knob for the last 20 years, so I think you can wait one more day. Once this is done and it's been 24 hours, so it's thoroughly dry, what you're going to do, and I use my little nippers here that I use for everything, you're going to nip off the toothpick right at the base of the large part of the knob, and we're going to leave the toothpick in place because it's now glued in place, and it's helping reinforce the inner circle so it won't tend to crack again, and that's really the trick. So you just nip it off. You're not going to see it because it's on the back side of the knob, so nobody's ever going to know that you did that except you, and it doesn't matter. So just leave it in there. It's the best way to go. And again, this is not one of those kind of things. You don't have to rush this. And in fact, what I'm going to do here is, see if you can see this, I'm going to put a little more super glue on either side of the toothpick. And since I didn't use all three of my pieces of cardboard, I'm going to use one of them to sort of smear it around in there to make sure that it stays. There's the first one. So that one's done. So I'm going to put that one aside, and I'm going to show you this next one. So this is the one from one of the AM/FM tuning shafts. This is the one that's broken crosswise in the center, so it's broken basically in half instead of the other one, which was a quarter. So this one's going to be a little different to do, because if you put a toothpick in like this, the toothpick is not really a large enough diameter to force it over all the way, and even if we put two toothpicks and we put one on this side, this side is the broken side, this is the side that's wiggly and loose, and this side is not. So if you put a toothpick in here, it's not doing you much good, but we'll talk about that in a second. So what we're going to do with this one is a little different, is we'll take the toothpick out and we'll put a piece of cardboard here in the center. Now, the crack is across here, so we want to be at a 90-degree angle. We want to be here, so we push against the crack evenly. You don't want to do it right next to the crack over here, because that's not where you need to push. You need to push it this way. So you put the piece of cardboard in, and then you get the toothpick and you shove the toothpick down on top of the cardboard, and it won't go in as far, but it goes in far enough, and that closes up the crack nicely. Now if you look really carefully, you'll see that the opening in the center, it doesn't really look very round. It's a little oblong-ish, but that'll be okay because when we put the metal sleeve in, the metal sleeve is round, and that's what fits on the control shaft, so it doesn't matter. This will be fine. So what we're going to do with this one is the same thing we did with the other one. We'll take these back out, and we're going to take our super glue, and we're going to put super glue in each crack. Now these cracks go down quite a ways, almost all the way to the bottom, which is not good. And once we put the super glue in there, then we're going to take our toothpick and we're going to make sure that we try to get it down in there as much as we possibly can. And we'll put a little more. And then we have to put our cardboard, and we're going to put some super glue in the crack here, and then we're going to push the cardboard down into the super glue we just put, and then we're going to take our toothpick and we're going to put some super glue on the toothpick a little bit, like that, and then we're going to put the toothpick down in front of the cardboard like we did before, like that. Oh, and I didn't point out, you have to be careful with super glue because you can glue your fingers together. You've been warned. Okay, so we'll put that in there like that, and that looks pretty good. Now we're going to take a toothpick and we're going to make sure that any of the super glue that's squeezed out inside the opening is smeared around, so we don't have a problem with getting our insert in. In this particular case, since it's cracked so much, we want to reinforce it every way that we can think of. So the other thing we're going to do is we're going to put some super glue down inside here and there, so when we push in the metal insert like this, it will help hold it in place and help glue the whole thing together. Now, in one like this, where you put some super glue down inside, you have to make sure that it's not pushing through the openings in the metal sleeve, because if it does, then it's going to interfere with it fitting on the control shaft where it has to go. And then we'll do like we did on the other one. We'll put a little more super glue in all the gaps that we can find to help hold it in place. And we'll sort of spread it around. Now the last thing we're going to do on this one is we're going to actually put a toothpick on the opposite side also, because we need to reinforce it as much as we possibly can. And even though this is the side that technically wasn't broken as much and it wasn't as wiggly, you need to do everything you can to make it strong. Like that. Okay, so that one's done. Now we have to let it dry. How long are we going to let it dry for? Everybody say it. 24 hours. Alright, there's that one. Now we're going to do the last one. The last one is pretty much just like the one we just did. So I'm going to go ahead and do it, and it's pretty much the same procedure. I'm not going to trial fit everything because I'm already pretty confident that I know how I need to do it, because this is not my first rodeo. I have actually done this before. Put that. And we'll get a toothpick. We'll put some super glue on it. And we'll put this in here, wedge it in, and that closed up the opening nicely. We'll take another toothpick and we'll make sure that it's spread around pretty good. We'll put a little bit on each side. And now we're going to put some inside the opening for the metal sleeve. Sort of smear it around a little bit. We'll put this in here like this. Sorry, like that. Make sure it's sitting all the way down inside. We'll put a little bit of that. Wipe it off. We'll make sure there's none down inside to interfere with how it fits on the shaft. And see, now this one is a little different because on the last one we just did where we put two toothpicks, the second toothpick fit in reasonably tight. This one actually is a little on the loose side, and it's not going to do as much good to reinforce it if it's that loose. So how are we going to deal with that? We're going to take our third piece of cardboard. See, we did end up using all three. We're going to put this down in here like that, and we'll put a little more glue, and we'll take our toothpick and we'll wedge it down inside like that, and we'll take another toothpick just to smear off the excess. And that one's done. Now, I know that all looks like a horrible mess. There's one, there's two, there's three. But they're not. They're actually, each one will turn out really well. So after they've dried, for how long? 24 hours. Everybody say it, 24 hours. Then I'm going to snip off the toothpicks, I'm going to snip off the cardboard, and then I'm going to put them back on the control shafts, and they're going to work just fine. Now, the last bit is, if you do all of this, and you don't do something about the control shafts that are too hard to turn, guess what's going to happen? These are just going to break again. So you have to deal with the control shafts that are hard to turn. But that's a topic for another video, because this video is about fixing knobs. But look for a control cleaning video soon. And we also have some on our YouTube channel if you look under remote speaker cleaning and things like that. And I'll put one of those tag things that pops up right here somewhere that'll take you to that playlist and you can see how to do that. Guess how long it's been since we glued all these up and I explained about cleaning all the volume controls before you put them back on. Well, it's been more than 24 hours actually, because we had one of those weekend things at the end, in between the end of the last segment and this segment, but now these are thoroughly dry. And it occurred to me that it would only be fair if I actually trim them off and show you how to do that, so that way you can follow along. This should be fairly straightforward to do. We'll do them one at a time. This, I think, was the first one that we did, or maybe it was the second one. I don't remember now. It's been too many days. How about that? So I'm going to take my little nippers that I use for cutting component leads off, and I'm going to snip off the toothpick. Just like that. See? Not rocket science. Just clipping toothpicks. And the nice thing about the way these are designed, that one had the cardboard also. So this one, these have the cardboard and the toothpick, and all you have to do is snip them off. The nice thing about the way these knobs are designed is this center circle here sticks up a little higher than the big outer part of the knob here. So when you clip these off, this is the part that sort of goes up against the faceplate and allows some gap so the larger circle doesn't make rub marks on the faceplate. So now they're clipped off. So I guess the last thing to do is put them on the master station, don't you think? And I would like to point out at this point that as you watch me clip off the toothpicks and the cardboard, I was not worried at all or concerned about just clipping them right off sort of in a cavalier manner because, oh, it had been dried for more than 24 hours. So all of the super glue is really, really dry now, and it's not going to wiggle and fall out and make a big mess and ruin all the work we did. Why? Oh, because it's dry. All right, so this one, there's no tag on it, just a round knob, so it's either the AM or the FM. We'll do the AM first. We just line it up, push it on, fits nice and tight. Same thing with the second one. This will be our FM knob. Just like that. And here's our master volume knob. You know it's a volume knob because it has a little tag on it, just like the little tag on this one. So when you adjust the volume, you kind of got an idea where it's set. So this one goes on like this. Of course, this is easier to do if the set is laying down instead of standing straight up. So I'm going to turn it around a second so I can actually get a decent look at what I'm doing here. Because you do have to line it up. Remember the little metal sleeve that we put inside the knob? Well, it has the flat side on it that we talked about. Well, the control shaft has a corresponding flat side on it. So guess what you have to do? You have to line up the two flat sides and then push it on. So there's our master speaker volume adjustment. Our system volume, that was fine anyway. That's the one with the on-off switch. And then we have our AM and our FM. And now these knobs turn just like new. When I rebuilt this unit, I did clean the master speaker volume control pot and the system volume control pot because this one wasn't too bad, just a little scratchy, which is normal. This one is the biggest culprit on these models for whatever reason, even though they're sealed up pretty well, so you wouldn't think so, but they get really, really, really hard to turn, and that's what contributes to cracking the knob. So now, not only is the set rebuilt, but now the knobs have been repaired, so when the customer gets it back, he can turn and twist the knobs to his heart's content, and they're not loose, they're not flopping around, and he can tune his stations correctly and adjust the volume, and it's all good to go. I hope you found this video interesting, and perhaps for someone it will be helpful. If it is, give it a thumbs up on YouTube, because that helps us just a little bit. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell, and when you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.